What is going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with Dan Malin. We are here. NFL Week 4 is kicking off. Thursday Night Football action between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Dan, you do all of our showdown playbook work over at Fantasy Alarm. So Thursday Night Football, kind of your specialty here. How are we feeling about tonight's matchup, man?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's an NFC East matchup, and those always hit a little bit differently. And we get the Cowboys, who we were discussing this before we went live. The Cowboys look great against Cleveland defensively in Week 1. They looked like the Cowboys defense that we saw last year. And so we just assumed that everything was just kind of ho-hum. The drum would keep on beating as it did last year. And they haven't been able to stop anything the last 2 weeks. The defenses look pretty terrible. So this is arguably and strangely a must-win game for Dallas. And the more I thought about it all day, I just keep envisioning an absolute rout of the New York Giants tonight. And so I'm pretty heavy on Cowboys all around, especially for my showdown captain spot. But looking forward to it. I at least hope it's a competitive game. These Thursday night games are always a mess.
Yeah,
I was actually pretty surprised that currently on DraftKings Sportsbook, the over/under is at 45 points. Pretty high for a Thursday. But
that is pretty high for the Thursday, especially when scoring generally has been down, around the league this year. And yeah, this is about as must win of a game there is for Dallas. You're 1-2. You're tied at the bottom of the division with the New York Giants. Now you're going on the road here. You fall down to 1-3, and heads might be rolling in Dallas sooner rather than later. Obviously, they kind of had the offseason drama with CeeDee Lamb. Looking for that contract, not participating in training camp. He's been okay, good, but not the CeeDee Lamb standards that we expected to see, out of him last year. And I think some of that is also obviously impacting, the Dallas Cowboys offense. They didn't address the running back position at all. They said they brought back Ezekiel Elliott. Then you had Jerry Jones being like, the reason we didn't bring in Derrick Henry was because we couldn't afford him. Laughable. You could certainly afford him. You're a millionaire, right? So if you wanted to bring in Derrick Henry, you certainly could have done that. If you wanted to re-sign Tony Pollard, who's having a great year in Tennessee, you probably could have done that, but you stuck with Rico Dowell and you brought back Ezekiel Elliott, and your running game looks like that's exactly what you did. So definitely some offensive questions for Dallas, but the New York Giants defense leaves a lot to be desired as well. So maybe this is sort of a breakthrough game. And like you said, you're expecting a rout. You're expecting Dallas to do some things. And we'll talk about some showdown strategies. Of course, your playbook is available over on Fantasy Alarm. So you guys can go check that out. And if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, you see the scroll down at the bottom. I'll throw the QR code up on the screen as well. We got a 7-day free trial still going on. So if you go to fantasyalarm.com/win, you can scan that QR code there on the screen as well. Promo code Let's Go. That first month you'll get for less than $20, but you start off with a 7-day free trial, which means you get all of our DFS content for all sports all the way through next week here. So you get yourself an early look at the Week 5 DFS content with all of our coaches. Dan also does the defensive DST coach for DFS, so you can check that out. And also get you guys ready for all of the Week 4 DFS content there. So check it out at fantasyalarm.com/win. Promo code Let's Go at checkout. Gets that first month after the 7-day free trial for less than $20. And we're here to answer your start sit questions. So if you have lineups you got to set, DFS or betting questions, certainly throw them in the chat. Dan and I are happy to help you guys out. We'll hang out with you guys this evening, until around 8 o'clock tonight. So get you right up until roster lock for this evening. Dan, before we went live, you and I were taking a peek at some stuff over on Underdog Fantasy. Fantasy got a great deal going on right now with them. You go to fantasy.com/underdog, use promo code ALARM at sign up, and you get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a special pick. It's a 99% off pick. So you get, the 0.5 total yards, which we've seen. I think Patrick Mahomes is the new user sign up promo for this week. So you get Patrick Mahomes half a total yard for him as your 99% off pick. So if you are new to Underdog, fantasy.com/underdog, promo code ALARM, they'll give you a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. So, deposit $2,000, they give you $1,000 in your account of bonus funds. Can't really hate that. So you got to have the money and go win some dough over there, as Dan says. So I got a couple of plays. I know you and I were looking at some props there before we went live. What are you looking me to build some cards around tonight over on Underdog?
I built a 4-legger and I just looked at it and I hate it. I'll start at the top with the ones I do like, but I had to rush and lock in this four-legger before we went live. So we were discussing the Brandon Aubrey picks. I wish I had just taken some hours ago, not an hour and a half before the slate lock, because there were some very good ones on Brandon Aubrey. He's been great so far. Cowboys have been putting him in position to get some field goals, but he's off the board. So since I am operating under the assumption that this is a Cowboys route, I do like CeeDee Lamb higher than 0.5 rushing plus receiving touchdowns. This is a great spot for him. Sure, it's a short week, but he is still one of the premier receivers in the game. I love him to find the end zone tonight. I mean, when you think about how things are unfolding for a lot of first-round picks, CeeDee Lamb is just off to a slow start because he missed training camp. And so, the first 3 games have essentially just been his training camp. So I do like him to find the end zone tonight. And I do think that we do see some positive regression for the Dallas Cowboys defense. So I also locked in Daniel Jones lower than 240.5 pass plus rush yards. And the one I locked in accidentally, I thought I was taking lower than 17.5 longest reception.
Yeah.
Bill Robinson, I accidentally locked in lower than 17.5 first half receiving yards. And I don't know how I feel about that because I absolutely love Wan'Dale for this slate. Phenomenal value play on DraftKings. He's only 4,800. He's been on the field. I think he's got 26 targets. For a guy who's 4,800 on DraftKings, he has far too many targets for a guy to be in that range. So I love him on DraftKings. I'm very heavy. I mistakenly took the wrong prop on Wan'Dale. So I don't know if I want this underdog 4-legger to hit now, because if it doesn't,
it's like a hedge against your DFS lineups, I guess, right? Like if he has it, or I've been getting pretty aggressive to some levels of success, taking the first quarter receiving yards on some of these guys. Wan'Dale Robinson, 2.5 first quarter receiving yards. I feel like I essentially just need him to catch one ball, right? Like to get that. And if you kind of scroll through, especially on Sunday when you have a much larger slate, there's a lot of guys that it's 2.5, 3.5 receiving yards. I had that with Christian Kirk over the weekend. It's 2.5 receiving yards. I'm like, all he has to do is catch a football. Just catch a football. He caught 1 for 6 yards in the first quarter. That's good enough. We'll cash it. He should be way more involved than he's been so far this season in that terrible Jacksonville offense here. But, if you find some guys that are off to slow starts, you can take a look at some of their first quarter receiving numbers on Underdog in your sportsbook of choice here. Obviously, there's risks involved there, but, I think that's a way to go. I did take the Wan'Dale over 6.5 targets for tonight. Again, this guy's been a target hog for them.
Averaging 8 per game.
Yeah, 12 in week 1. He only had 4 against Washington, kind of a disappointment, but then he followed up with 8 against Cleveland. So again, a guy that they're going to throw to. They throw to him short. He's sort of the bailout guy for Daniel Jones there in the underneath routes. So I like that. I also went with the other safety blanket in that game. And that's Jake Ferguson. Guy came back from the MCL sprain, didn't really miss a beat. Had 11 targets last week, 6 catches. I went over 4.5 catches for him, which is a bit boosted tonight. It's a 105 for the multiplier there. So I went there with Ferguson. To your CeeDee Lamb point, generally scoring a touchdown over on Underdog, you're looking at 1 point something X in terms of a multiplier payout. It's 0.89. So it is a heavy favorite, but it's more so alluding to what you're talking about. And again, we'll get into some DFS plays. Like the odds makers are being like, nah, CeeDee Lamb scoring tonight, right? Like that's basically what they're trying to tell you with that there. So all in all, I think these are some pretty good spots. And again, you can use some of these plays. You can go check out Underdog for yourself. Today, they have a 30% profit boost, which you can add to your plays there. And it's a $1,000 max. So they're not even, sometimes you get these places and they give you odds boost and but you can only do $5 min. No. Underdog today, $1,000 max on their 30% profit boost. And of course, you can scan that QR code again on the screen, fantasfarm.com/underdog, promo code alarm. You can get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 and a special pick that's 99% off when you sign up. So check out Underdog today. Win some money tonight when we do some Thursday night football action here. We see you some questions in the chat, Dan. So let's kind of get to these and help our friends out. Elio from Twitch. Should he start Rico Dowell tonight for the Cowboys? I guess we'll answer that, but we should also know, who else do you got, Elio? What's Rico or whom I guess is the question.
I think if you start Rico Dowdle, you're kind of just hoping that he gives you 8 to 10 points. That's okay as an RB2, arguably like flex territory. But the backfield is such a mess. Nobody has really picked up the torch and absolutely ran with it. We talked about before the podcast. Rico Dowdle's longest run of the year is 10 yards. The Dallas Cowboys are the only team in the NFL that do not have a quarterback or running back rush of at least 11 yards. So the running game in general, it's just bad. Zeke Elliott looks slow. You've mentioned before we went live that they should really just be using him in short yardage situations. I tend to agree. And Dowdle is getting plenty of work. He should see plenty of snaps, but they still have Deuce Vaughn. A bit of a nepotism play there. I think his dad is still on the coaching staff.
Still on the roster, which is stunning to me.
And then they also have this kid, Hunter Lupke. I put him in the Showdown playbook as an absolute punt play. He saw a career high in snaps last week with 30, had some usage in the passing game. So, it really does boil down to who else you could play over Dowdle.
Yep.
But if you do play him, I wouldn't expect a ceiling game. If anything, you're kind of hoping for that 8 to 10 point.
Or maybe like he breaks one, right? Like you're just hoping maybe a play like that can kind of come through here. Joseph, Dallas, Philly, or Cincinnati defense for the week. Again, Dallas obviously on the road here against the Giants. The Eagles was Tampa Bay? Yeah, Eagles are on the road against Tampa Bay. Cincinnati on the road against Carolina. The Fighting Andy Daltons there. Which direction would you go with the defensive play this week?
In my DST coach this week, I faded the Bengals simply because it's a pricing play. I know this is more of a season-long question.
Yeah.
I'm not very optimistic about the Bengals. They have to go on the road facing Andy Dalton in a revenge game. The Carolina offense actually looked pretty promising once they made the quarterback change. I don't love Philadelphia either in Tampa. Field conditions for that could be a little bit weird post-hurricane. I'm going to lean Dallas. It's a short week. I think Dallas actually routes the Giants. Sure, worried about Malik Neighbors. He's an absolute game changer. He's actually saving Daniel Jones's job. So of those three,
some of the numbers they threw up on their comparisons to like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, like Neighbors is right there with those guys. Like he is out there producing as they are bona fide number one wide receiver right out of the gate. There were some people that were mocked having Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr. in like their pre-draft rankings. Obviously, MHA's looked pretty good over the last couple of weeks, but those arguments seem more legit now than they did pre-draft with the way the Neighbors is producing, given the far worse situation there. So it should be kind of interesting to see how that all kind of works out. Alan, should I start Dak or Kyler this week? Kyler is again at home going against the Commanders. As the guru of quarterbacks here at Fantasy Alarm, I lean Kyler in that situation. So no defense is worse against the pass than the Commanders. So run even though there is sort of the Cliff Kingsbury. I've seen people being like, well, he knows the tendencies, he knows the strategies, he can, he knows how to stop Kyler Murray. It's like, maybe you don't have the personnel though. So or if McBride is out, some people are worried about that. But again, I like Kyler a lot this week. I would take him over Dak.
It's wild that we're talking about two games in the afternoon window on Sunday. The Commanders and Cardinals have an implied total of 50 points. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers have an implied total of 40 points.
Yeah.
We are officially living in a simulation, but I agree. I would also go Kyler Murray over Dak Prescott.
Living obviously outside of Boston, Dan, we get to listen to a lot of Patriots talk, and right now things aren't great around New England regarding the Patriots. But they were spewing out some stats, and the Patriots were like 28th in explosive play rate or something like that, which is obviously terrible. But Kansas City's dead last in explosive play rate.
That's stunning,
right? So you would expect obviously that the Chiefs, and they're 3-0, they're beating teams. Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice, and all those guys. You think they'd be making big plays, but they're really not. They're Travis Kelce, obviously in his struggles. Rashee Rice is about the only guy doing anything in that offense. So, dead last is Kansas City in explosive plays, which is surprising.
I co-manage a team, and I co-manage a team. We actually traded about 2 hours ago. We somehow managed to trade Xavier Worthy for Amari Cooper.
Wow. To a Chiefs fan, or just like people sell them on the upside? Like what's the
we don't know. It was actually proposed to us, and
Okay.
we kind of realized that the owner that proposed it to us, we feel bad, but we're not going to turn back the clock and undo it now. But he's relatively new to the game. I think he saw a buy low opportunity for Xavier Worthy on some podcast or something.
Maybe like a sell high on Amari Cooper. I don't know, but
but
that's an easy click. So I like that. Yeah, listen, I always say, if you're the person that gets the trade, it's not your responsibility to send the good offer. It's just your responsibility to click accept. And then if the league has any sort of veto power or whatever, they can do what they want. But I've certainly been on the end of deals where you're talking about, where it's like you get sent something, you can't click accept fast enough, and you're like, yeah, well, it's not my fault. They got offered to me. So we're going to say, should I start who do I start of these two wide receivers and a flex? Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyreek, Hubbard, McLaurin, and Shakir. We're expecting Tyler Huntley to be the quarterback this week for Miami. I don't know if that gives you any more confidence in Tyreek Hill. It feels odd to suggest to ever sit Tyreek Hill, but what are your thoughts here?
I subscribe to the start your studs theory. So much of me just wants to start the first three of Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and Tyreek Hill. But this also feels like a really good smash spot for Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah. A lot of people have been on him this week for sure. Bender did his bargains video or contrarian video, one of the two today, that had Chuba Hubbard in it for the same reason.
I think I can't believe I'm doing this, but I might go Marvin Harrison Jr., JSN, and Chuba Hubbard. And I don't love myself for that.
I was going to say, sitting Tyreek is always a risk. McLaurin also finds himself in a pretty good spot. If the sort of progression that we're seeing out of Daniels here is now that they're going to open up the playbook a little bit more. I mean, the dude just completed 93% of his passes in a game. He's completed over 70% in all three games that he's played this year. We've kind of been waiting for McLaurin to break out, and he got it there. What does Seattle have this week here?
Detroit, I believe.
Yeah, that's the way to beat them too, is through those slot receivers. Yeah, I'll subscribe to that. I don't think there's a wrong answer. Maybe like outside of Shakir of that group, though, War Eagle, and even Shakir had a good week last week. Hard to look at a quarterback throwing four first half touchdowns and think no, but they're on the road against Baltimore, so that's definitely a tougher spot. So Shakir would be the definite no of that group, and I don't think you can go wrong really with any of the other guys. So you want to go MGH, JSN, or Hubbard, I'll buy it. If you can't sit yourself to sit Tyreek, that's fine. We love the first three wide receivers as well. Brad here, thanks for the help with the Discord. Of course, Brad, always here to help you guys. And if you're watching this and you're in our Discord and you're having, channel errors, throw us a message in the support channel. I'll help you out. Let's see. Currently starting Taylor, Jacob, Stevenson, Singletary, Irving. And Irving's on the bench. Am I correct? What am I reading this? Am I currently starting Taylor and Jacobs?
Yeah, I think he's starting Taylor and Jacobs. The other three are on the bench. I think that's correct.
Yeah, especially if Love is back this week. They may lean still on the running game there. Not going to say Taylor the way he just played last week, so I'm good there. Irving would obviously be the only one. Like if Rashad White is out, but again, you're talking about the Philly defense. Like that's pretty tough to run against. Packers defense against the Vikings. What are our take on this one for I Love Green Salsa?
If Jordan Love is, I don't really know if I want. They play each other, right? It's Packers and Vikings playing each other, I
think. Yes, in Green Bay.
Yeah. If Jordan Love is active, I'm probably going Packers. But if Jordan Love, they're saying he has a good chance to play. I'm not entirely convinced that's going to be the case. I like what I've seen from this Brian Flores Minnesota Vikings defense. Yeah. They're getting pressure. They're getting sacks. I mean, I know that when they played San Francisco, it wasn't, Christian McCaffrey. They didn't have McCaffrey. It wasn't the 49ers that we're used to, but still a very impressive routing. They held Houston to just one touchdown last time? I'm sure it was at home. If Love's out, I'm probably leaning Minnesota over Green Bay confidently. If Love plays, I think I might still go with Minnesota. Just with a lot less confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Kevin O'Connell, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, I think, and like what he's doing with Sam Darnold has been
You
outstanding.
got the Aaron Jones revenge game this week, so
That too, yeah.
get that playing up. His name is an alien emoji. He wants. He's got McBride, but he hasn't been playing. Hasn't been practicing this week. Did a concussion protocol. He's got to drop one of JSN, Ty Chandler, and Emmanuel Wilson. You're definitely not dropping JSN.
No, you're not dropping JSN.
Chandler or Emmanuel Wilson, which backup running back would you let go to pick up a tight end?
If one of them is not a handcuff, I would drop that one. In a vacuum, if neither are handcuffs, I would just drop Wilson.
Yeah, I agree with you. MMA plays facing CD. Should I hedge and start Dak?
Depends on who else you could start. I typically don't overthink this and let it determine who I play at quarterback if I'm going against another receiver.
Those touchdowns to like Tolbert and Ferguson tonight, right? Like then you're killing yourself if you sit them, because you don't want CD to do good.
I would like to know who else he has. I mean, I'm not starting him over Josh Allen, Lamar, Hurts, Kyler, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud.
Stroud's in a great. I wrote in the quarterback coach. This is like the last stop for Stroud. It's like if he doesn't, it's a great spot. He's home. It's a great matchup for him. If he doesn't come through here, like we're in full on sophomore slump. That's just where we're at. So. MMA. I know you're watching. Let us know who the other quarterback would be that you'd be playing over Dak, and we'll be able to help you out a little bit. And all of you who are tuning in, if you have questions, like give us the full scope of your question so we can kind of make an easier. He's got Stroud. Yeah, play Stroud.
He's got Stroud. Play Stroud.
Yeah, Stroud. Again, they're home. Jacksonville. Again, they just gave up 4 first half touchdowns to Josh Allen here. So. Stroud's where I would go. I know he's been slumping, but this has to be the week for him. Do we think Daniel Jones can go over 200 passing yards tonight? Is that his problem?
Yes. There's a game script for that for sure. I took the under on his passing and rushing total. That was 240.5. I think he can go over 200, especially if they're trailing and chasing the Cowboys all game.
Yeah. Over an underdog, it's 203.5. So. You got a little more of a wiggle room there. If you're kind of on the fence on 200, you just go take the under on 203 and feel a little bit better on that. So, if they're behind, they're going to throw. We know Dallas gives up big plays. Their cornerbacks like to cheat and try to make turnovers, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they give up 50-yard touchdowns because of it. So, can certainly get that on a spot there. Albert popping in saying hello, and then again MMA saying that he has Stroud there. So. Again, this is an interesting spot, kind of given where these two teams are in the standings. It's early on, in the year with Dallas, if they fall to 1-3, or if New York can sort of build on, their performance last week against the Browns with their win, see that offense sort of start to come into focus a bit more, build some confidence behind Daniel Jones. I mean, after week 1, Daboll was already having to come out and be like, no, like we're going to go with Daniel Jones this week and not Drew Lock because, it's Drew Lock, but it's good to kind of see what they can go in this spot if they're able to kind of pull it off here. Bryant's has got Mark Andrews. Any chance he scores on Sunday Night Football? The tight end is stint on waivers. Well, again, let us know who would be on waivers, but I think more likely you're going to be playing Andrews. Andrew Cooper did a short for us over on the Fantasy Time YouTube channel today where he thinks this is a good bounce back spot for Mark Andrews. Again, I know he has certainly struggled. Isaiah likely hasn't done much either since that opening night game. So it's not like, he's kind of stepped up and taken over. That hasn't been the case. They're home versus Buffalo this week. So, you're banking on them throwing the football probably in a little bit of a shootout, 46.5 total there, 2.5 point home favorite Baltimore. So yeah, let us know what your other options would be, but more likely than not, you're playing Mark Andrews.
I think the other thing is like if you don't have Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, are you feeling great about who you have at tight end? So, if you don't have one of those two, it's like you're kind of in the same boat as everyone else. And so I've had people ask me if they should be dropping Mark Andrews. Kind of hard to, because that's a guy just based on name recognition that will easily pick him up. Okay, so Strange, Ertz, and Fant are available to him.
I have
If
some
Evan,
Ertz, I think.
if I would say that if Evan Ingram was not active for Sunday's game,
Strange.
I would give some love to Strange.
Okay. You wouldn't drop Andrews for them though. You'd make a different move, keep Andrews on the roster, and pick up Brenton Strange or Ertz or whomever in his place there.
Yeah, like Andrews isn't a guy that you can drop. If you don't have Bowers or McBride, chances are you're probably rostering 2 tight ends, really kind of living and dying by Andrew Cooper's yin and yang tight end.
Yeah, yin yang tight end article for sure. And even he has talked a lot like, the guys you're counting on producing as like the yins aren't yinning. So you're really having, and the yangs aren't really yanging either. So you're kind of finding yourself in a bit of a tough spot. I took Freiermuth in a lot of leagues this year, and he's been okay, but his 5 points a week have been about as consistent as any other tight end in fantasy this year. So maybe you hope they kind of step up and move forward. But Strange obviously found the end zone last week, had a good week in week 2. So you could go there if you want. Again, Ertz, I think, in that matchup against Arizona, you were playing game total theory there, and so maybe some upside for him. PPR rest of season, he drafted Kincaid. Again, a lot of people are panicking at the tight end spot. Picked up Ingram, and he's on IR. Someone dropped Andrews. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Pick up Andrews. You're going to have Andrews, Kincaid, and Ingram all in one team. They come back, you make a trade. So no problem there, Brad. Obviously, don't make any drastic drops to make the move if you can afford the spot on your roster to pick them up, 100%.
Yeah.
I would for sure do that. And also the league, man, people are dropping Andrews. That's crazy. Chris plays a lot of FanDuel Showdown, so this is right down your alley here, Dan. Who are you starting at MVP over on FanDuel? Neighbors, Prescott, or Lamb?
So based on how, if you read the Showdown playbook, it reads as if I'm heaviest on Malik Neighbors. That almost was my intention. When I was building early lineups last night, the first 5 lineups I built were all Malik Neighbors. I play on DraftKings, so it's captain, but arguably the same thing on FanDuel. I know on FanDuel, most of the time it's a wide receiver or quarterback hitting the optimal lineup at MVP. I'm leaning Lamb personally, just because I ended up 40% of my lineups have him at captain on DraftKings. I'm at 30% on DraftKings. So I would go with CeeDee Lamb. I think this is basically his opportunity to do what Jamar Chase did Monday night.
Right. And obviously, like I said, you're looking at sort of the odds makers here, and his odds of scoring a touchdown tonight are pretty favorable. Especially again, you go over Underdog Fantasy. The pick multiplier on that is 0.83. Usually, anytime touchdowns, you're over a 1x multiplier. So, really considering him the odds favorite to find the end zone tonight. And obviously, if he can score touchdowns, that's great for your captain. When it comes to your strategy for building lineups, DraftKings and FanDuel, do you ever consider using defenses or kickers in your captain spot so you can sort of jam in multiple high-priced plays?
In previous years, I was almost largely against it. I would almost take very firm stands against never doing it, and I would just always kind of hope for shootouts. More than happy to play them in the flex, especially if weather, wind is going to be out of control. I'm fine rostering 2 defenses. This year, I've tried to be a little bit more open-minded. I don't go super heavy with a defense or a kicker at captain. But, for example, tonight I do have one lineup that has the Cowboys as the captain. I have one lineup that has Brandon Aubrey as the captain on DraftKings as well. It's not something I love doing by any means, but a lot of my CeeDee Lamb captain lineups will have, it'll correlate with the kicker. Quarterback captain almost has, I think, the most positive correlation with a kicker in the flex. And the idea is that, if your offense is still successfully moving the ball downfield, and even if it stalls, your quarterback is racking up points regardless as the offense is moving the ball, and then you can still get the positive correlation with the kicker. And then if you have a player that, if your quarterback rushes one in for a touchdown, or even if they throw a touchdown, it's still an extra point opportunity. So, not fond of it in the captain spot, but I did it tonight in one line.
Chris is saying that he has Lamb as well, but Neighbors is 5% in the captain spot. Neighbors is 5% in the captain spot. That's gonna, that's what you need to win a showdown. You know, you need that low rostered captain to kind of help separate yourself, and obviously a bit more luck. You talking like kickers, obviously, it was that first Monday Night Football game with the 49ers. Moody had 6 field goals or something like that, right?
He had like 26 fantasy points.
Yeah, right. And that would have certainly been the chalk to take you down with the tournaments there. There's obviously some other guys that came through and scored. You know, Lazard with the double touchdowns there at the end of that game put some lineups over the top. So, what's some of your other like general showdown lineup strategies for those who are, you know, either multi-entering or even if they're entering the single entry contest? You got sort of one maybe rule or strategy to live by?
It really kind of depends on the contest. If I'm playing single entry, I am almost always just trying to build as unique a lineup as I can, but one that still kind of makes sense. The thing I like about what Chris said about, you know, having neighbors and 5% ownership is that I'm reading that as if he is projecting the game to go a certain way. So his lineups are probably all exclusively following not the same game script, but relatively kind of like how I'm predicting a Cowboys routing. And so a lot of my lineups, no matter what, if I'm playing a wide receiver or a tight end at captain, I'm always going to correlate it with the quarterback in the flex. It's not exactly, you know, a groundbreaking strategy. I will say that a lot of my lineups tonight, and I don't do this very often, is a lot of my lineups tonight are 5-1 builds. If I'm not playing Malik Neighbors at captain, I'm relatively light on him in the flex because there is a part of me that feels like I want Dallas to just go all out, win this game. It's a must-win game for them, which is hard to believe in week 4.
Yeah.
So a lot of my builds are 5-1 builds, 4-2 Dallas builds. Always correlate your pass catchers with quarterbacks, and do not be afraid to leave money on the table.
Yes.
It feels like so many times in these large field GPPs where you can do 150 lineups, 20 lineups. If you're not, you know, taking it down, and most of the time you don't take it down on your own, you are like sharing the winnings. If you're not taking something down for a big win, you're probably doing your best just to maybe get your entry fees back.
Yeah.
So a good way to get different and unique so you can have that solo ship is to leave money on the table. And all too often people are trying to spend every dollar.
Every dollar. Yep.
If you're doing that, you're building a duplicated lineup.
Yep. The lineup that, again, going back to that Jets 49ers game, the lineup that took down the split, there's two guys that split the 100K there. They left $4,200 on the table. They played Lazard, they played Jennings, you know, the kicker, obviously, and they left $4,200 on the table. Just two guys to the dupe line and chop the 100K there. So definitely a good strategy to make sure you do. You know, sometimes it feels like you have to spend every dollar, but you definitely don't when it comes to showdowns there. Flash Rider wants to know, do we start Waddle, Odunze, or Brian Thomas Jr. this week?
I kind of want to go with Rome Odunze. I don't particularly. I mean, who's starting for? It's Tyler Huntley from Miami, correct?
Yeah, so that's at least the expected starter this week.
It's a downgrade to Waddle, and I'm saying this as someone who owns him in probably my biggest money league.
Yeah.
I actually really like the Chicago Bears this week for DFS.
Yeah.
They are, I think Caleb Williams is probably going to be my heaviest owned quarterback.
Did you read the quarterback coach this week?
I have not yet. I typically read it on Fridays and Saturdays. Is he in there?
Caleb Williams is my play of the week.
Awesome. I love that. But overall, like this feels like it's going to be his opportunity to really break out. Just read an article about he bought an absurd $13 million mansion right on Lake Michigan.
Okay.
But for me, I'm going to take Rome Odunze. I thought I read somewhere that Keenan Allen was a limited participant.
He was limited today at practice. Yeah.
If he's out, I love that even more. Odunze, I feel like he had some great looks last week. I feel like this is a good week to have some Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze stacks.
Yeah, building off of last week, home versus the Rams. Rams, the worst pass defense in football pretty much right now. So,
and I apologize. I know that was a season-long question, but like just seeing Odunze's name just triggered DFS for me.
I mean, listen,
I still would go Rome Odunze.
There's correlation to all of it because we're looking for the highest scoring players. So you can break it down in whichever format you want. Ultimately, we want points. So, I like Odunze there as well. You know, I think Huntley is an upgrade over what we saw from Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Still a mobile quarterback. It'd be, I literally tweeted out, I was like, how does a team with as much talent that the Miami Dolphins have set themselves up with Skylar Thompson, who on back-to-back plays looked like he didn't know how to take a snap last week on like shotgun draw plays, and then immediately got sacked after that, and one he ended up getting hurt on. Like, he looks like he doesn't know how to play the position. He's been on the team for a couple of years, and they kept him over Mike White, who, again, Mike White, for, you know, as being an average quarterback can be, like, he had some moments there with the Jets. Like, wouldn't you have rather have kept him around? And I obviously, I guess not. But, you know, then they had to bring in Tim Boyle last week, and now they bring in Tyler Huntley this week. So you would have thought, like, why weren't they the Andy Dalton suitors, right? Like, why weren't they the team with, like, a solid veteran in case something happens to Tua? We have a real plan. And they just were not.
Or Joe Flacco.
Yeah, right. Like, you know, because I took Tyreek Hill everywhere. Tyreek Hill was my wide receiver one in my rankings this year. You know, whenever I was drafting, you know, 2, 3 or whatever, I was taking him over the running backs, over Breece Hall, and it looked good after 1 week, you know, and then it's been, you know, the injuries now obviously a bit concerning there. So we'll see what happens. What do you think about Deontay Johnson? Would you him, Shaheed, or Ford this week? Deontay, did he pop up on the injury report today as well? Let's see. I thought I might have seen his name.
I hope not.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson groin, but says he will be ready for Sunday. So it feels like he's always dealing with some sort of soft tissue issue. But they put Adam Thielen on IL, so the injured list. I got Xavier Legette in some leagues, and I'm starting him in this week. But not the question A is asking us: do we play Deontay Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, or Jerome Ford this week?
I'm playing Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Coming off what he did last week and the fact that Adam Thielen is going to be out, like, yes, that certainly opens the door for other people to step up. Xavier Legette. Jonathan Mingo still around?
Who?
Is Jonathan Mingo still on?
Mingo? Yeah, Mingo's still there. Yeah.
I mean, like, but there are... Yeah, snaps are available, but this is easily a good spot for Deontay Johnson.
I agree. Listen, they got a real quarterback. We talked about it all last week. Like, hey, Dalton threw 56 times and his like one start last year, and look what he did. And he threw 38 times last week and looked as good. So why would you go away? Especially at home here. We know the Bengals defense has been reeling, so all about that. Is Jaden Daniels a must start? I mean, unless you have Lamar Jackson, I guess, is like your other, or Josh Allen. Like Kyler Murray, would you play, like, there's only a handful of quarterbacks I would play over Daniels, and even then there's conversation to be had there. But yeah, I mean, Green Salsa, let me know what else you got at QB. But Daniels is as much of a must start right now than that there is in the league. So
100%.
Go said he's late. You're not late. We got time. Throw your question in chat. We'll help you out here, man. And Steve, half PPR, Wandale, Watson, or Keon Coleman?
I want to not play Wandale Robinson and then wait for Sunday to see what happens with Jordan Love. If Love is active, I think I want to go Christian Watson. If not, I think I still go Christian Watson, but it gives a little more, I guess, of a bump to Keon Coleman. I love Wandale tonight for DFS. I just don't know if I have the heart to start him over Christian Watson right now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we talked about how good Minnesota's defense has been, so that would be like the one drawback there. I don't really like Coleman against Baltimore, so it would be Wandale or Watson for me. And if you're comfortable waiting and finding out with Watson, then with Love, you can play Watson. Otherwise, Wandale, I think, would be my spot. Half PPR, obviously, it hurts Wandale a little bit more than the other guys. You'd want a full PPR with him because, I mean, though he scored a touchdown in week 2, he doesn't generally rack up a bunch of yards. So you really need the volume to hit tonight for that to come through, but he's at least the safer play of the situations you're waiting on. And he's got Josh Allen, so he would be
of course he does.
That I would play over Jaden Daniels. So yeah, I would play Josh Allen this week against Baltimore. What do you think, Dan? Would you play Josh Allen over Daniels here?
Yeah, I mean, they're both arguably top 3 plays this week, but I would still go Josh Allen over Jaden Daniels. That is, you should try and trade one of them.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, find the weakness, see who needs a quarterback, which I bet a lot of people do at this point, and make a move. What do we think about this FanDuel Showdown lineup? MVP is Prescott. He's got Lamb, Aubrey, Singletary, and Tolbert, but we can pick between Tolbert and Dowell. So he's going 5 Dallas here. 4 Dallas and a Giant, Singletary.
Okay, so I'm counting. Oh, never mind. I read it wrong. Okay. I think I would leave it as is with Tolbert. I think there's just more of a ceiling there with him. We talked about how Rigo Dowdle just hasn't really done too much to supplant himself or just ensure that the Cowboys made the right move by not bringing back Tony Pollard by any means.
And you have the stat, right? Like the Cowboys haven't had a run over 10 yards this year? Like a single
Dowdle has one, but the Cowboys do not have a rush over that's at least 11 yards or more. They're the only team in the NFL that does not have a rush of 11 yards. So I think I would stick with what you have and go with Tolbert. Because there's also an opportunity that Dowdle might not touch the ball as much as we're anticipating.
Yep.
The snap share among the running backs was very odd on Sunday.
Half PPR, we got to pay 2. Rashad White, Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison, Alan Lazard. Also has Wan'Dale Robinson available to pick up.
That's tough.
Yeah, I definitely don't like Rashad White. Not only is sort of the value on him trending in the wrong direction, they also had, again, a coach there in Tampa Bay saying, we want to play both. We'll continue to ride sort of the hot hand. And obviously that has been Bucky Irving. And then you also take the fact that they're dealing with the Philly matchup here. But, I mean, Jacoby Myers hasn't been great. Jordan Addison is expected to play this week. Lazard, the touchdowns have been good, but the volume last week wasn't really there. So a lot of question marks.
If it was full PPR, I think I would go Addison and Wan'Dale, but half really downgrades Wan'Dale.
Yeah.
And the Jets play at such a horrifically slow pace, too. That's why, while the connection and the relationship with Aaron Rodgers is great for Lazard, and I think he's found the end zone, 3 times already this year.
One of them was with Tyrod, though. Wasn't with Rodgers.
Yeah, it was late in the game, week 1 with the backup. Gosh, this is tough. I think I'm going White and Addison.
I mean, given the options on the board, I think that's probably where you go as well. Like White's going to at least start the game. He does have PPR upside catching the football. If they're behind it all, he should be on the field over Bucky Irving in that game against the Eagles. So, or Addison coming back. I mean, I know Naylor has obviously had touchdowns in 3 straight weeks, but those probably should have been Addison touchdowns, or at least opportunities for Addison over Naylor. So, I'm good with the Addison White play there. Samcon, Mason, or Cook. I mean, that's tough to go against. 1 point PPR. They've been using Cook in the passing game, which has been nice. So you got Cook versus Baltimore. You got Mason versus New England this week.
I think I'm leaning Jordan Mason.
Yeah, volume's been good. They did have Deebo Samuel come practice in a limited fashion today, which is good news for that offense.
I think it would greatly help the running game if there was another weapon that the 49ers had on the field that the opposing defense had to account for.
Yep. And they don't even use Garundo. It's just straight up Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
So, and the Patriots offense, one of the lowest scorings in all of football. You got to think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Mason just to kind of run out that clock. Cook is going to be in a better paced game, but I still think Mason, just the volume for him is insane. And he scores that touchdown. You're looking good there. So, and Flash Rider appreciates our advice. No problem. So, guys, if you have any more questions, again, you can throw them in chat. We'll hang around for a couple more minutes. Until then, taking a look sort of forward this week. Again, you do the DFS defensive coach here. What's some of the top defensive targets that we should be looking at this week?
I really like going back to Minnesota this week. They were my favorite punt last week at just $2,400. And, I'll be completely honest. My strategy with DST is, we and you do the quarterback coach, we write up options across all the pricing tiers on both DraftKings and FanDuel. And I love looking at defensive matchups and everything, but I fully understand I'm not going to compromise the integrity of my lineup if I love the skill position players that I have. The DST, it's the last piece of the puzzle. So if the only option that you have at your leisure is to punt down at the position into that mid 2K range, just do it. Anything can happen, especially with the new kickoff rules this year.
Right.
We haven't really seen too many teams take advantage of it or figure it out. But a kick six, pick six, doesn't matter. Like anything can happen with a defense just to help them return value.
Yeah.
So this week, there are some good teams in good spots. Obviously, the favorites are going to be the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the New York Jets, just because of the low implied totals across their games, and they're all pretty significant favorites. I've already set them off the Bengals. Why would you pay for the Bengals when you could just pay for any one of those other teams, or you can just pay down? So I'm going back to the well with the Vikings. They're only $2,900 on DraftKings. I love it. If Jordan Love does not go for Green Bay, Minnesota is just getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Pressure leads to sacks. Pressure also leads to fumbles, turnovers. And I also like the Broncos a little bit too. They are kind of my absolute punt play if you need the salary relief. Tough matchup for sure, but they do have Patrick Surtain, who can probably shadow and follow Garrett Wilson a little bit across the field. Stopping Breece Hall is going to be a tall order, but at the same time,
Right.
We touched on this. The Jets play at a horrendous slow pace. So if that's going to be the case and the Broncos can just do enough to bend but don't break, I do think that there's a path where they can possibly return 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10 points on DraftKings. And if that's the case, you're just kind of like taking it and running.
Yeah, I went with some early builds I had Houston this week, and they're home. They had 4 sacks against Minnesota last week. Yes, they gave up 34 points. But week 2, they had 7 sacks against Caleb Williams and 2 picks. Again, nothing I've seen out of Trevor Lawrence makes me think that offense is going to turn it around in a week on the road. And then if not,
short week on the road.
If not, they got McCorkle coming in after him. So we saw Mac Jones' second play to strip sack right away. So, I don't think much of that Jacksonville offense right now. Houston, their head coach is a defensive coach. You got to think that they have an identity they're trying to build around. I like their aggressiveness after the quarterback and maybe get some turnover upside. So 3K on DraftKings. I've been throwing some Houston Texans in some lineups for me there. So, guys, we do appreciate you all tuning in. Again, I know Brad appreciating us as well. We'll see you in the Discord, Brad. And you guys should be in that Discord as well. You can do so, become a member of the Fantasy Star family right there on the screen. FantasyStar.com/win. We have a 7-day free trial going on right now. If you use promo code Let's Go, when you sign up that first month after your 7-day free trial, just $19.98. So you get a whole month's worth of DFS content and all premium content, including our Discord there for less than $20 for that first month. But you can try us out for free for 7 days right now. FantasyStar.com/win. Scan that QR code there on the screen. Final question. No, Brad just saying he's got to get to see Dan. Dan gets screen time. You gotta go watch the NASCAR.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
DFS content. Watch Dan and his stuff. If you're not a familiar, dude, Dan and Matt have gotten me hooked on NASCAR, man. I play the NASCAR DFS every week. You got the Truck Series, you got the Xfinity, you got the whole deal. You got all those playbooks out during the week, and those guys absolutely dominate NASCAR. So check them out there. But of course, Dan's always in the Discord helping y'all out with your lineup builds. I'll be back next week. Maybe Dan will be. We'll find out. Until then, go look with your lineup.